Nothing was said. No words followed. And somehow, that absence stayed longer than anything spoken. The chair stayed where it had always been. Wooden. Plain. Pulled slightly away from the table, as if someone had risen from it and never returned. He did not move it back. He passed it often, slowing without stopping. Close enough to notice the way its legs cast thin shadows on the floor. Far enough to avoid brushing against it. The chair did not demand attention. It did not accuse. It only remained. Silence settled around it early. Not sudden. Not heavy. Just present. Some people would have called the room calm. Others might have mistaken it for peace. No one noticed how carefully he adjusted his steps to keep the quiet intact. He sat elsewhere. Always elsewhere. The chair marked something unfinished. Not an argument. Not a departure. Just a moment where words should have followed and didn't. He had expected silence to pass, to thin out, to be replaced by explanation. Instead, it stayed. His days adjusted around it without announcement. Mornings arrived quietly. Evenings folded in on themselves. Nothing pressed him to speak. He learned how to occupy the space without filling it. How to listen without expecting sound. How to breathe without preparing a response. The chair became part of that discipline. It faced the table at the same angle each day. It held the same distance from the wall. Unchanged, as if waiting were its only function. There were moments when he stood near it longer than necessary. Moments when his body leaned forward, then corrected itself, as if speech might surface if given room. But silence had shape now. It had learned where to settle. The absence of words began to feel intentional. Not chosen. Maintained. He realized that nothing had been said, not because there was nothing to say, but because saying it would have altered something fragile. From the outside, the stillness looked controlled, respectful, even mature. From within, it felt like pressure without direction. The chair remained empty. The room remained quiet, and the silence did not fade. It learned how to stay. He stayed with the quiet longer than he intended. Not by choosing it again, by allowing it to remain. The chair did not change its position. It stayed slightly angled, as if still aligned with someone who was no longer there. He began to move through the room with more care. Not caution, precision. Steps were placed where they made the least sound. Objects were set down slowly. Even small noises fell out of place. Silence had become something to protect. He noticed how easily the days adjusted. How little resistance there is to saying nothing. How quickly absence learned his habits. The chair became a reference point. He measured distance by it. Time by how often his eyes returned to its empty seat. There were moments when he almost spoke. Not aloud, In posture, a shift of weight, a breath drawn deeper than necessary, the body preparing for a sound that never came. Silence responded by settling further in. It no longer felt temporary. It felt arranged. He told himself that words could still be used later. That timing mattered. That speaking too soon might fracture something delicate. The chair did not contradict that belief. It remained still, neutral. From the outside, the restraint looked intentional, thoughtful, even kind. No one saw how much effort it took to maintain. He began to sense the cost in small ways. How certain thoughts stopped forming completely. How memories paused halfway, unfinished. Silence had started to shape what could be held. The chair seemed heavier now. Not in weight, but in presence. He stood near it more often, close enough to feel its outline without touching it, as if proximity might restore what distance had erased. But the space remained unchanged. Silence no longer felt like space between words. It felt like a surface, smooth, unmarked. He realized then that nothing was waiting beneath it. No explanation gathering strength. No apology gaining clarity. Silence was not holding anything back. It was replacing it. The chair stayed empty. The room stayed composed. And the quiet continued. Not as a pause, but as a condition that had learned how to last. Something within the quiet began to shift. Not volume. Not tone. Weight. Silence no longer felt neutral. It pressed in subtle ways, settling where words once would have moved. He noticed it first when the chair started to feel closer. Not because it had moved, but because the space around it had thinned. Standing near it required more awareness now, as if the air itself resisted him. As if crossing that space would mean acknowledging something already formed. The restraint he had practiced so carefully began to show its shape. It was not protection. It was preservation without purpose. He had believed silence prevented harm, that leaving things unsaid kept them intact, that stillness was a form of care. Now it felt more exact than that. He saw how often he had replaced words with delay, how easily not now had become not at all, how the absence of sound had started to make decisions on its own. The chair reflected that understanding. Unmoved, unresponsive. It did not accuse him of what had been withheld. It simply marked where something should have been addressed. Moments arrived that no longer paused near him. They passed through without slowing. As if silence had taught them there was nothing to receive. He became aware of how much had been shaped by what was never said. Not through loss, but through accumulation. Each quiet choice layered itself over the last. Each withheld word added density, until speaking no longer felt like continuation, It felt like disruption. That realization did not arrive with clarity. It surfaced gradually as pressure. He understood then that silence had not preserved connection. It had redefined it, reduced it to proximity without exchange. The chair stood as evidence of that change. A place once meant for presence, now holding only position. He felt the urge to speak rise and stall. The body remembered how. The voice did not follow. Silence had trained him well. By the time he recognized its cost, it had already rearranged what was possible. The chair remained empty. The room remained still. And the quiet no longer waited for words. He did not sit in the chair. There was no rule against it. No resistance in the room. Only a hesitation that no longer felt temporary. The chair stayed where it was, unchanged, still pulled back, still facing the table at the same quiet angle. He understood then that nothing had been waiting beneath the silence. No moment ripening. No right phrasing forming itself with time. Silence had already done its work. What he had avoided saying had not remained intact. It had thinned, softened, lost the shape it once had. The effort it would take to speak now felt disproportionate. Not because the words were difficult, but because they would arrive without context, without continuity. He saw how long he had mistaken restraint for care. How often he had believed that not speaking was a form of gentleness. That absence could substitute for intention. The chair held that realization without reaction. It did not invite him to correct anything. It did not signal that it was too late. It simply remained evidence. He recognized that silence had not hurt because it was loud. It hurt because it stayed. Because it replaced what might have moved, shifted, changed. The room felt complete now. Not resolved. Finished. There was no urge to fill the quiet anymore. No pressure to recover what had been left unsaid. Only the awareness that some moments pass not with noise, but with perfect stillness. His hands rested at his sides. They did not lift. They did not search. The chair remained empty. The table remained bare. The silence held its shape. Some words lose their weight when they are delayed. Not because they were wrong, but because they were never given a chance to exist. He stayed where he was, not waiting, not deciding, just present with what remained. And the silence, having replaced everything else, asked for nothing further. There are things no one says out loud, not because there is nothing to say, but because saying it might change everything. If this story feels familiar, perhaps you understand it better than most.